Look, Twitter's had issues. It's had ups and downs with its user growth for many years now. But it does have its core base of users, and those users are highly engaged. And that's really the value proposition that Twitter has always provided to advertisers.
Hey gang, it's Monday, October 4th. Welcome to October. Jasmine and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily as well, a new marketer podcast made possible by Newstar. I'm Marcus. Today I'm joined by our senior analyst covering global trends. It's Jasmine Emberg.
Hey Marcus, hey everyone.
Hello Jasmine. Today's fact, coffee grounds are an amazing ant repellent. So if you have kids or pets in the house and you don't want pesticides on your counter, I don't think you need kids or pets to not want to put pesticides everywhere, but it's an extra reason. You can try out this trick. This is not coming from me. I'm not recommending this, but you can sprinkle coffee grounds, apparently, new or used, in the corners of your cabinet's counters, around pet food dishes, and anywhere else ants might pop up. Soon enough, your ant problems will go away. I'm not guaranteeing that. Just sounds like you're just making your house messy. The ants are repulsed by the smell, apparently, and even if they do eat it, the caffeine exposure will kill them. I'm not sure about this one. It seems like also an amazing human repellent, because covering your house in coffee grounds makes you look like a maniac. So if you plan on having guests over again, maybe don't do this. Just clear your food away. Isn't that how you get rid of ants? I don't know. Ignore this one. Don't do what I just said. It's bananas. Anyway, today's real topic, what to make of all these new Twitter features. So Jasmine, Twitter just announced a couple of new product updates, spanning everything from a creator fund to live audio improvements and even Bitcoin tipping. Let's go through some of them. First of all, tips, new worldwide tipping feature users can use to tip through Venmo, Patreon, GoFundMe, and also Bitcoin. Second, a creator fund. Twitter will launch a fund to pay live audio creators on its platform. Very few details about that so far. Number 3, live audio. Twitter will allow recordings of live audio conversations or events held via its Spaces feature, its Clubhouse-like feature. Number 4, communities. Twitter to test out a new communities feature that connects users with similar interests. And also safety mode. Twitter is testing a feature whereby accounts that use potentially harmful language or engage in repeated, uninvited contact with another user will be automatically blocked for a week. So tips, tipping, creator fund, live audio recording, communities, and safety mode. I've probably missed some, Jasmine. It just seems like Twitter releases a new feature every day. I can't keep up. But what do you make of all these new feature updates? And in your opinion, on the scale of desperate to calculated, is this mostly kind of desperation, throwing everything at the wall, or calculated, they know what they're doing?
So you're absolutely right, Marcus. I mean, Twitter has been throwing features at the wall recently and seeing which ones stick. To its credit, though, it's clearly starting to learn what kind of features are working on its platform, and it's even folded ones that haven't been working, like fleets. I think these new product updates are probably more calculated than before because a lot of them speak to the core of Twitter's business, which is giving people a safe and healthy environment to connect primarily with public figures and celebrities and the like. Now that every other platform out there is also competing for their attention, I think Twitter knows that it has to step up its game on the creator front to remain relevant.
You put together, I think, one of the most interesting pieces of analysis that I've seen in a while when you compared all the different social media platforms and the features they offer and in a matrix. And you basically show just how similar all of these social media platforms are becoming. They all offer this, that, and the other. In your opinion, where's Twitter fall within that? Do you see them as kind of gravitating towards more unique features that gives them a unique proposition, or more kind of just blending into something that resembles generic social media?
So first of all, I really need to update that matrix. I made that back in December 2020. So I think I know that there's been a lot more features that have been added since then. So it'll probably look quite different. I think, Twitter, when it first launched, its proposition was quite novel. I mean, this idea of, the short content and connecting again, with public figures and celebrities in this way. Now I think, all of these platforms are sort of blending together and really going after the same type of content.
Mm-hmm. If you had to give a gold, silver, and bronze medal to the top 3, let's say relatively newish features that they've rolled out, what would you give what? I say newish, you could interpret that as this year, the last 12 months, but kind of newish features. Gold, silver, and bronze medals to those features that Twitter's put out recently. And by that, I mean, the features that are most likely to help the company be successful.
Sure. I'm going to work off of the ones that you mentioned right at the top of the podcast. And I am going to give a gold medal to communities, actually. And that's because I think connecting like-minded people in smaller groups on Twitter can actually help make many users feel more comfortable engaging on the platform, and that can potentially increase usage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I saw that one, I was like, it's one of those features where it happens and you're like, this wasn't a thing?
Right.
Why has this been?
Yeah.
Okay, so that gets the gold. Mm-hmm. What about the silver and the bronze?
I'm going to give silver to tips. And that's because, helping creators make more money on social platforms is really important right now. It keeps them coming back and creating more content. And the same goes for Twitter. But I kind of see tipping as more valuable for smaller creatives rather than the sort of big name celebrities and public figures and journalists that make up the core of Twitter's creator base. So I don't really know how widespread usage will be here unless it helps to bring in a new type of creator to Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. How about bronze?
So bronze is going to live audio recordings. I can see why this would be useful for users who may not be able to tune in live, but it also really changes the format. Will people feel as comfortable talking when they know they're being recorded? And on the flip side, any sort of negative commentary can get lost in a live free-for-all, but having a recording of it makes it permanent, and that can be concerning for brands and creators.
Yeah, excellent points. We always thought when Clubhouse became a thing, would they eventually have to say, we're going to record these conversations because someone will, one of the platforms will, whether it's LinkedIn, Spotify's Green Room, Twitter's Spaces, or Clubhouse, and the rest will, I say likely follow. They could follow. We'll see whether that's something that users want and whether, to your point, whether behavior changes as a result. Mm-hmm. Speaking about users, Twitter is doing all of this so that people use the platform. So more people use the platform, and people who are using it use it for longer. Twitter users in the US have been stuck at the 53 to 55 million mark since 2016. For the last 5 years. They have the same number of US users. They will have the same number of US users in 2025 as they did in 2017, according to our estimates. And the share of internet users who use Twitter will also go down or inch down to 18%. What do you make of Twitter's flatlined growth in the US?
Look, Twitter's had issues. It's had ups and downs with its user growth for many years now. But it does have its core base of users, and those users are highly engaged. And that's really the value proposition that Twitter has always provided to advertisers. So what I'm more concerned about is Twitter's ability to extract revenue from those users to keep its business growing. And I think that's also what Twitter is working to improve with many of its new services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in terms of the revenue, so eMarketer Briefing Director Jeremy Goldman noting that our forecast says Twitter will bring in $47 in ad revenues per US monthly active user next year. For Facebook, that's 600% higher, but when you're talking about Facebook, everything seems to be 600% higher. In terms of their revenue, ad revenue, how much does user growth matter in the US if the ad dollars are going up? US ad revenues will climb 30% this year after growing just 6% in 2020. Also, Jasmine, the time spent on the platform, you said that they've got an engaged user base. They really do. 26 minutes, the average Twitter user would spend on Twitter pre-pandemic 2019. That leaped to 33 minutes. So it grew 7 in 2020 to 33 minutes, and it will kind of hold that watermark. It comes down to about 30, 31 going forward as well.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that comparing Twitter to Facebook is a little bit unfair. They're completely different platforms, and there's really nothing that ever matches the size of Facebook, and I don't think Twitter needs to. That's not what it's there for, and that's not how it's used.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And looking at Twitter for what Twitter is and the assets and the value that it provides. One is their worldwide growth and users. And Absolutely. A lot of companies, once they kind of plateau in the US in terms of penetration, they look outside of their domestic market. Twitter will add 20 million new users by 2025. Reaching 362 million. Most of those are in APAC. The percentage of worldwide internet users who use Twitter will stay stuck at 8%. However, having 8% of worldwide internet users use your service, you could argue, is pretty decent. Jasmine, it also seems as though the age demographic will be changing. By 2024, Gen Zers will make up the lion's share of Twitter users, stealing the mantle from millennials. Concerning, or is that just younger generations aging?
Yeah, I think, there's so much talk about Gen Z being the TikTok generation, and it certainly is. But I think the bigger point about Gen Z is that they use many different social media platforms. They're pretty much everywhere. So no, I don't think it's concerning. I think it's just a natural progression at this point. Mm-hmm.
Finally, Jasmine, I think, one of the articles reading for this was saying that if Twitter can remain patient with these new features, spaces, communities, things like that, it's possible at least some may catch on and become either revenue generating and or improve platform stickiness. So the other thing here is that a lot of these things are just still so new. We've got to let them marinate for a second and see if they do become useful for Twitter long term. That's all we've got time for the first half. It's time now for the halftime report, where we summarize the key takeaways from the lead story. Jasmine, do you have one or two takeaways for us from the first half?
The takeaway for me is that Twitter's main goal right now is boosting engagement so that it can hit many of those lofty user and revenue goals that I outlined back in February of this year. And it really sounds like there's two prongs to this approach. Right now, at least, it's about improving safety and comfort for its users and then also making it a more attractive place for creators.
That's what we've got time for the lead story. Time now for In Other News. First, a quick word from our sponsor, Newstar. Are you prepared for marketing's next chapter? You won't want to miss Brave New World's 2021, the virtual marketing and analytics event of the year on November 9th and 10th. Join Brave New Worlds to learn how you can adapt to the forces redefining advertising. It's free, and you'll hear from today's top minds in marketing, data, and analytics, including executives from Facebook, General Motors, Capgemini, Publicis, and more. Head to bravenewworlds.newstar to register today. All right, folks, we are back today. In other news, Facebook will suspend working on its Instagram Kids app. The company notes how Apple's new privacy terms will continue to cause headwinds, and a new Facebook executive signals a pivot to focusing on hardware. Story 1, Facebook will suspend plans for a version of its Instagram app tailored to children under 13. Nicknamed Instagram Kids, after lawmakers and others voiced concerns about the photo sharing platform's effect on young people's mental health, notes Matt Grossman of The Verge. Instagram says that it will instead listen to the concerns of parents, experts, advocacy groups, and policymakers whilst continuing to work on parental supervised experiences for younger users. According to Instagram, kids already find ways around its age restrictions on its main app, so why not offer a version of the app that has stronger safety controls and is ad-free? That was their rationale for trying to create one of these in the first place. Jasmine, your reaction to the news?
I don't think anyone is surprised by this. It is a bit sad, though, in a way, because providing a safer environment for kids only, who, like you said, are lying about their age to make an Instagram account already, is arguably the right thing to do for Facebook. But as we all know, Facebook has a PR problem, and this just was never going to be accepted by the public or the media or lawmakers.
Yeah. I am a bit surprised, actually, that they decided not to go ahead with this and not just to power through and say, we're going to do this, we don't care, and we'll, say, we'll ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission. This move rather coincidentally follows the Wall Street Journal investigation we just recently talked about into Facebook, showing that the company's internal research found Instagram was harmful for a sizable share of young people, particularly teenage girls with body image concerns. Back in May, attorneys general from 44 states had urged Facebook to abandon its plans for Instagram Kids. Story 2. Facebook just said that changes to Apple's new privacy terms that now require apps to ask users for permission to track their activity will continue to cause headwinds for its ads business in Q3, notes Sarah Fisher of Axios. Facebook says they're impeding its tools advertisers use to measure effectiveness of their campaigns. Facebook estimates its tools are undercounting how often campaigns are driving iOS users to convert on a site by about 15%. The company warned about this back in July after the Q2 earnings. Ms. Fisher points out that adoption of Apple's latest software update, iOS 14.5, featuring these ad tracking transparency changes, mostly concluded during the month of June after some delay, which is why its impact is being felt now. In Facebook's opinion, Apple's tracking changes are more about dominance than privacy. Apple says its changes aim to improve the experience for consumers. Jasmine, your thoughts?
So Facebook has been able to withstand so many headwinds and continue to grow, but I think it's a little different this time because this is the first direct assault on its ad business. Still, this announcement is super vague and even a bit misleading. It's not necessarily saying that ad spending on Facebook is being hurt, at least not yet. What it is saying is that campaign performance, measurement, and visibility is being impacted. And Facebook still has the holiday season ahead, which could potentially buffer spending as it has in the past.
Yeah, great point. Story 3, Facebook names a new CTO with a major focus on hardware, writes Alex Heath of The Verge. Andrew Bosworth is his name. He will be the new CTO and continue running Facebook's hardware group, Facebook Reality Labs, which employs 10,000 people. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said that this was all part of building towards its so-called virtual metaverse. The company's current hardware products, Mr. Heath notes from The Verge, includes the Oculus Quest VR headset, the Portal video chat device lineup, and its new camera-equipped smart glasses with Ray-Ban. Back in June, the BBC also reported Facebook was developing a smartwatch that could control its forthcoming AR projects, due to release mid-2022. Jasmine, how serious do you think Facebook really are about hardware?
I think they're very serious. I think Facebook feels like it dropped the ball on the smartphone boom and it doesn't want to make the same mistake again. I think trust is going to be its biggest hurdle. It's going to have to convince people that any hardware that it's making isn't tracking or quote unquote spying on them.
That's all we've got time for. Jasmine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening. Tomorrow, October 5th, you can tune into our Tech Talk webinar with Awin, talking about growing your Q4 e-commerce revenue with plug and play technology. You can click the link below in the show notes to register for that. We'll see you tomorrow for the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by Newstar. That's brutal. Do you know when you, like, in Olympics, if you jump the gun, you can get disqualified? I just think that's too hard. Just if you should be allowed to jump it once, but the fact that they moved it from like one jump to none, I think that's brutal. You've trained for 4 years and you hear like some noise or you just get overexcited and you're disqualified for the whole thing. Where do you guys stand on this?
Are you comparing this podcast to the Olympics?
Kind of. What I'm trying to say is
equal amount of preparation.
As an athlete, yeah, I was a bit generous. Anyway.